with the Republic of Korea. I think this is an important, close consultation, not only because North Korea, which I'll get to in a moment, because the Republic of Korea is a key trading partner in Northeast Asia. They are a democracy that over 50 years has just gone from a complete basket case to a very vibrant, modern economy. And so they are very important security partners. They have become important development partners as well. So I think it'll be an excellent visit and a very important one. Where North Korea is concerned, I think we're in a really tough spot, to be perfectly frank with you. As I think some of you know, got to spend about 12 hours with Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un's father, when Secretary Albright and I and others went to North Korea. And as odd as Kim Jong-il may have appeared to people and his father Kim Il-sung, they could deal. They were pretty transactional, quite frankly. And Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il's father, was actually ready to, I think, make great strides in peace when he died. And his son took over. It's not to say it's ever been easy, but I think it was somewhat easier. This young leader appears to be rather reckless, and whether he is consolidating his position because he is young with the military to show that he can be tougher than tough, perhaps, or whether he just thinks he's immune to any pressure, we don't exactly know. But what has happened, I see the Secretary is here right on time. What has happened as a result is that it has opened up a path of discussion with China, who very well understands what is occurring. The Secretary was recently in China. The Chinese new leader, Xi Jinping, said that he wanted a deeper discussion, immediately sent Wu Jiawei here to the United States. We have begun that deeper discussion, and I think the development of that relationship, along with our very strong partnership with South Korea and with Japan, and with others in the six parties, will help us find a way through this very difficult situation. With that, I'm going to stop because we are very fortunate for me to turn this over to Linda to get your best speaker of the morning. Thank you.
Please join me in welcoming someone who needs no introduction, Secretary Kerry.
Thank you very, very much, everybody. All the members of AFSA and DAGOR, and a lot of folks with gray hair, some without. It's good to see everybody here. Welcome back to a home which I know you all care about enormously, or you wouldn't be here in the first place. It's fun for me to be able to welcome you here. I want to congratulate Career Ambassador Al Larson for his recognition here today. And it's a privilege for me to be able to share a few thoughts with everybody. I was standing right here yesterday where I was able to share thoughts with members of the State Department family about a young woman by the name of Ann Spenningoff, 25 years old, who we lost in Afghanistan, as you all know, and read. We had a wonderful memorial service for her yesterday, and shortly, literally in about 15 minutes here, I'm running over to the entryway to greet the Vice President, and we will actually add 8 stars to the wall, recognizing a number of people whose lives have been lost over the course of the last years, including 2 going back actually to Vietnam, strangely enough, who will finally be recognized for their loss back in 1972, 73. But let me just share with you all very quickly. Thank you, Linda, for my quick introduction. I was in politics for a long time, and I was used to longer introductions, flowing, you know, he's done this, he's done that. Now I just get, ladies and gentlemen, the Secretary. My kids show me no respect. They say, Dad, take notes. changed. It's a pleasure for me to share some thoughts, and I know you have been very, very well briefed because Bill Burns has already talked to you, and Wendy was just sharing thoughts with you, and you don't get better expertise or better diplomatic skills than Bill Burns and Wendy Sherman. I'm blessed to have them here in the department, as we all are. This is a very different time. I'm just going to kind of talk to you. I'm going to do what my public affairs staff says is the most dangerous thing, which is sort of talk to you without notes. I just want to share with you thoughts as you return here to the department in 2013. Some of you retired more recently, so if you're vintage 2001 and onwards, you shared in this very different world that we're trying to manage today. And if you're pre that, you in the 90s saw the aftermath of the fall of the Soviet Union and the emergence of a whole bunch of conflicts that had been tampened down on through the years, whether it was a Tito in a Yugoslavia or the Soviet Union itself. You had suddenly these sectarian, religious, and feudal, and tribal, and other kinds of forces that were unleashed. And that's really the world that we're coping with today. Very different from the bipolarity of the Cold War. The Cold War was simple, frankly, compared to what we're looking at right now. And in many ways, the State Department and an administration back in the 50 years following the end of World War II, the crises rose and fell, obviously, and we faced Korea and Vietnam and other kinds of conflicts along the way, the rise of terrorism, Abu Nidal, and what we saw in the 1960s and 70s and so forth. But never the plethora of immediate kinds of challenges that I think we're seeing today, whether it's in North Korea, Afghanistan, Pakistan, rising groups of terrorists in various parts of the world, the Sahel, the Maghreb, the Arabian Peninsula, Horn of Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, M23, Congo, Rwanda, etc. And needless to say, Iran, the very real potential of conflict as a consequence of the lack of transparency in a nuclear program, where everybody knows if your program is peaceful, it is not that hard to prove it. North Korea, where we have a young leader who is untested and as of yet not fully defined or definable, with challenges that we face with respect to the Korean Peninsula, China, the rise, an important rise, which we respect and frankly would like to see us build into a much stronger partnership, much more cooperation, if you will, in defining a new model relationship with China. Syria is really as complicated as any issue that I've seen in the context of so many different things happening there. Sectarianism, Sunni Shia, a fight for freedom and for opportunity, which is where the revolution really began. And of course, surrogate components, Iran, Hezbollah, the United States, Europe, Russia, external supplies, all of this complicated by extremists who see the vacuum and take advantage of the opportunity and try to move in, and chemical weapons on the ground. I can think of nothing worse for global interests than the potential of those chemical weapons falling into the hands of any of those extremist groups. It would be your worst nightmare. So nothing is simple. And to boot, we have a group of frozen conflicts: Nagorno-Karabakh, Cyprus, and the granddaddy of them all, the Mideast, which I find in all of my travels in 29 years as a senator on the Foreign Relations Committee and now as secretary, the Mideast is an excuse often in many parts of the world for people to rally extremists and to recruit, but also a very real, searing issue equally in many parts of the world. And so we need to try to break these things free all at the same time and navigate our way through some of these things, threading the needle in some very complicated challenges. What I am concerned about as I think about this road that we're on is the speed with which extremism, radical religious exploitation combined with ideological extremism is capturing the imaginations of people who are locked into failed governance or absence of opportunity or complete disenfranchisement. And I worry about the degree to which those people become prone, therefore, to easy, simplistic slogans and alternatives. And the number of failing and failed states is growing more rapidly than the number of new democracies and full-fledged democratic enterprises. So we have a real challenge on our hands for our nation. As everybody here knows, all of you veterans of foreign policy, foreign affairs is really the effort to try to maximize your values and your interests in the conduct of your relationships with people in the world. And sometimes you get the luxury of putting your interests higher, or the requirement of putting your interests higher, and the luxury of putting your values higher. And it's always a balance of those two. One might argue that Libya was more value-oriented, and obviously other places in the Middle East are more interest-oriented. I mean, these are the balances. It's very complicated to try to wind your way through that, needless to say, and it tends not to satisfy anybody. So I see, and I think the President sees, President Obama is very focused on this question of sort of making certain that the United States message and organizational principles of our policy are clear and achievable, and that they're going to maximize both our values and our interests in the public arena, in the global arena. And I think to that end, I said in my nomination, in my hearings for confirmation, that today I think so much of foreign policy is really economic policy, and I believe that. We're living in a voracious marketplace, global marketplace. And if you look at what's happening in Africa, for instance, 10 of the fastest growing 15 countries in the world are in Africa. And China is out investing the United States in Africa. Future resources, which are going to be critical to our production and to our economy, are going to be linked to long-term contracts and to relationships with countries, where now there are more countries competing for those resources. So you have the BRICS, other countries growing in their economic clout, and others beginning to make different sets of arrangements as a consequence of that. So I believe that what we need to do is find a way to counter this rise of failing and failed states and of extremism, a kind of nihilism that fills a void. I mean, I was struck today, I was watching or something, and Steve Ratner was talking about sort of the global trends of the economy in Europe and the Eurozone challenges. You have 57% unemployment among young people in Greece, 51% unemployment among young people in Spain. I was talking with a Spanish minister the other day, and he was telling me how the children of their families are leaving Spain and going to any country they can find a job. So, needless to say, the social strains of that, the cultural strains of that kind of alienation of a whole generation are complicated. Remember that in Tunisia, the Arab awakening began not with an Islamic/ideological fervor. It began with a fruit vendor who set himself on fire because a police officer was slapping him around and preventing him from being able to sell his wares as he wanted to, preventing him from having dignity and opportunity. And that ignited a revolution. And in Egypt, those kids, they were kids in Tahrir Square. That was a youth, generationally inspired revolution, not a Muslim Brotherhood or Islamic revolution. And what happened was the army protected the notion of having a democracy, gave them an election, and the most organized entity in the country won the election. The Brotherhood had been working for 80 years to organize and be ready for that moment, or some moment. So our challenge is to get ahead of that curve, my friends. Our challenge is to harness the private sector. Now, I'll give you the model of what we're trying to do. In the Middle East right now, I've engaged Tony Blair with the quartet, together with some private sector businessmen, Mukhtar Kent of Coca-Cola, a New York businessman who's an investor who understands investment very clearly. And we've brought McKinsey Company, thanks to Dominic Barton, their CEO, who's contributed people of his own goodwill and their goodwill, and they're doing the evaluation, and we're breaking down every sector of the economy, looking at tourism, looking at water, looking at energy, looking at ICT, and so forth. And we're trying to lay down a plan which is now attracting other private sector corporations. I'm not going to list them all here now, but they're coming to the table, and we are working on the notion of how do we take a GDP of $7.5 billion, an unemployment rate of 21%, and lower the unemployment rate to 7 or 8% and raise the GDP to 15 billion in 2 or 3 years. That's the alternative. That's the alternative for Egypt, it's the alternative for Maghreb, it's the alternative in Sahel, and everywhere. We have to provide opportunity. And we're not living in an age where we can go to Congress and get $100 billion for the Marshall Plan or whatever likelihood it is. So we have to leverage. And I believe we can leverage OPEC and EXIM and AID and World Bank and IMF and lots of other efforts with the private sector, where there are a couple $1 trillion in cash sitting out there waiting to find places to invest. But the prerequisite, obviously, is having governance that makes the right set of choices about stability, security, inclusivity, and the politics of that particular country. So it's a different model. We're going to say more about it as we go forward in the days ahead. But I think that the United States is on the threshold here of an opportunity to be able to redefine how we are engaging with countries around the world and how we can get a message out there about our values, about opportunity, about dignity, about education, about the freedom to choose and elect your officials and so forth, that actually winds up changing people's lives and meeting our high standard here at the Department of working to make things better, to improve the lot of others. So I think it's a worthy endeavor. I'm extraordinarily excited about being here. We have just a terrific team of people coming in. I know you're reading that we don't have everybody here yet and so forth, but they're on their way. The President is moving the process as fast as everybody can move it. I'm confident we're going to get this place at full speed shortly, and I hope you'll be proud of the choices that we're going to make in terms of meeting both our interests and our values in the best traditions of the United States State Department. So thanks for visiting today. I know you have a full day and a lot of things going on. It's a pleasure to see you all. I'm glad you came back. Thank you.